Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 has been released for over a year now, but many mysteries still lie within the destroyed pizzeria. Throughout this channel, I've attempted to solve different characters, endings, and mysteries from this game while also theorizing about the newest update that released teasing the newest FNAF game, Secret of the Mimic. So in this video, I'm going to combine every single video on FNAF Help Wanted 2 to attempt to solve this game and everything you need to know about it. So let's go over both the sad and secret ending, Michael Afton's role in this game, the update teasing Jackie and Secret of the Mimic, and finally the top 10 Easter eggs from the entire game. So let's attempt to solve Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 by first going over the sad ending. Before we can even begin to go over the ending, let's first go over how the player would even get there. The gameplay style is very similar to the first Help Wanted game in the sense that the player is inside of a pizzeria with a monitor in front of them. This monitor has 6 base game modes in the form of computer folders, and in each folder there are mini games where prizes can be earned once you beat them. But when beating all of the available mini games inside of the base game modes, the player will be awarded with a Faz wrench, the same one used by Cassie in FNAF Ruin to open doors and solve puzzles. Here it serves the same purpose in opening a locked door in the corner of the pizzeria. After opening the door, you'll find a Princess Quest arcade machine and the same signal jammer we've seen in FNAF Ruin. When disabling the signal jammer, you'll have the option to take off the Vanny mask, again just like in FNAF Ruin. Taking the mask off, it's revealed that the player is actually in the FNAF 6 pizzeria under the Pizzaplex, the same one we saw in Security Breach where the sinkhole led to Burn Trap, and here the sinkhole is even behind the monitor, and it's obvious this is the exact same location. Taking off the Vanny mask also unlocks harder versions of certain mini games that were once unavailable. Again, beating these will award the player with prizes, and when beating all of them, you essentially beat the game and unlock the real ending. In the ending, you are awarded with a present. When opening the present, you unlock a collectible figure, but before you can even collect it, a charging station appears in front of you. The charging station then opens before Glitchtrap's hand peers out, grabbing the door. Then out of nowhere, 5 night marionette bots appear in front of you and jump scare you. You are then presented with a small cutscene in the perspective of a staff bot. It's the exact same moment from Ruin when Cassie first finds the Vanny mask from the perspective of a staff bot. The credits then roll, ending Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. Again, this ending is very confusing and it raises more questions than answering them. But finally, let's start to attempt to solve this ending and what it means. Now at the surface, it may just seem that this is Glitchtrap escaping into the real world, but we've seen that exact same scenario in the first game. In that game, Glitchtrap escapes the virtual reality world by implementing his virus into Vanny, which influences her actions in Security Breach. I also think it's important to note that Glitchtrap is not a reincarnation of William Afton, but it's instead the Mimic trying to become William Afton and copy his actions. But the point still stands that in the first game, Glitchtrap escapes into the real world, meaning that's not what's happening in this ending. It's almost the opposite. A very important detail in this ending is right before the charging station appears, the Vanny mask is taken off, meaning that the ending takes place in the real world. But how is this possible if we see Glitchtrap even though we know for certain that he was never a physical entity? Well, I think that this is a hallucination or a vision of the Mimic being released into a physical form. This would make sense as the charging station rapidly appears in front of you when your screen glitches, and because it wasn't there before, it leads me to believe that again it's just a vision of the Mimic. Something similar actually happens in many minigames where your screen will glitch revealing an image of Glitchtrap, which is why I think this is happening in the ending. Now, why did the game developers choose to use Glitchtrap instead of the Mimic? Well, there can be various reasons, but none of them impact the point that I believe this is a vision of the Mimic. But this raises yet another question. Why does beating all the minigames without the Vanny mask reveal all the staff bots? Well, I think that the Mimic is actually using the player to gather resources the same way he used Vanessa. I strongly believe this because in most of the minigames without the Vanny mask, there are various artifacts and items from Ruin pointing to the fact that these two games are connected. More specifically, we really see this in the Salon Roxy Repair minigame. Like I mentioned before, any events without the Vanny mask mean they're happening in the real world, which means that these few minigames are also happening within the real world. So in this Roxy minigame, the player must fix Roxy's destroyed face from the end of Security Breach where they ultimately fail. They instead end up using this mask, which we also see in Ruin. This would explain why Roxy has a different design from the end of Security Breach, as it was actually the player from Help Wanted altering her design. But most importantly, in the corner of her desk we see this Roxy walkie-talkie, the same one that Cassie uses in Ruin, so it may be possible that the player gave this to Cassie so she and the Mimic can communicate, which which would eventually lead to his release. But how these two people know each other is a question I'll get back to later in the video. So what if an electrician was sent to the Pizzaplex to gather what was left of this disaster? But under the pizzeria, they find the FNAF 6 location where they are ultimately influenced by the Mimic to gather resources to help him escape. That's why the pizzeria has slight differences in details and designs, but I also don't think that the player didn't notice they were being influenced. Many of you might remember MatPat's most recent theory where he discusses tally marks around the pizzeria and how he believes someone left them there as a message. Now what if that someone is the player from Help Wanted 2? What if they're leaving a message for someone warning them of the Mimic? This might also explain the Circus Baby plushies as they are actually in one of the minigames. But moving back to the ending, I do think that the player did end up bringing the Mimic enough resources, which is why he sent the staff bots to take them out. But this just leaves us one final question to wrap up this theory. Who do we play as? Well, this is actually a popular theory that I strongly believe in, and it's that we play as Cassie's father. Let's look at the evidence. In the very beginning of Ruin, Cassie says this when getting a Faz wrench.
A Faz wrench? It's just like my dad's.
She's very clearly pointing to the fact that her father was an electrician for Fazbear's Entertainment, and because she's talking about him in past tense, it's suggesting that he is no longer with her. This would make sense if he'd gone missing in the pizzeria during the events of Help Wanted 2. But why is this important and why does it matter? Well, in the very last cutscene, we are the staff bot, and I think it's more than just the perspective of it. I think that the player or Cassie's father was actually uploaded to the staff bot system, meaning that this isn't just a staff bot giving Cassie the Vanny mask, but instead it's a father giving his daughter a mask that ultimately helps her in her journey. Even the way that Cassie looks at the staff bot is worth mentioning. She almost looks at it in a comforting and trusting way. And when you get the statue award for this moment, the staff bot also looks like it is comforting her, just like the way I think a father would. Now, some might argue that Cassie's father's mind being uploaded into a staff bot seems far-stretched, but in the current world of FNAF, this would make sense. We've already seen the opposite where the Mimic's virus uploads itself into Vanessa's mind, so why can't the opposite happen? So the FNAF Help Wanted 2 ending is Cassie's father gathering resources for the Mimic, and when he ultimately does, he is taken out by staff bots, and his mind is uploaded into a staff bot system where he meets his daughter one last time and gives her the Vanny mask. Now let's look at the secret ending that answers the character of Vanessa and Vanny. First, let's go over how you can even unlock the secret ending. Throughout the game, you can unlock secret plushies of the different main animatronics. In Bonkabon, you can unlock a Bonnie plush by plugging in the wires to the machine in reverse order. In the Pizza Theater minigame, you unlock the Chica plush by throwing a lemon Chica bar, Chica Chug Blendy, Chica Chug soda, and a Chica chowder into the trash can. In Fizzy Fizz Night, you unlock the Golden Freddy plush by mixing the can of soda, protein, acid, caffeine, and sugar all while in lockdown. In the Sister Location minigame, you unlock the Puppet plush by entering the code 1983 into this locked drawer. In Foxy's Log Fume minigame, you unlock the Foxy plush by first shooting all cardboard cutouts of Helpy. You then need to shoot 3 sun symbols in all the secret areas, and finally you need to shoot the sun symbol found on this cake. In Fazer Blast, you unlock the last plush by first shooting all of the rockets. You then need to shoot the balloon animatronics that appear in both vents, and finally you need to complete Night 5 Fazer Blast by defeating Springtrap. This will not only unlock the Freddy plush, but it will also give you a glitch purple coin. After unlocking all 6 plushies, you then can use the purple coin in the Princess Quest arcade machine. Then, after clearing out a couple of levels, you find yourself in the game and the princess even appears in front of you. After using her sword on yourself, you then have the option of picking up that same sword, and if you do so, you are transported into the actual game itself. Then, after clearing even more levels, you find 6 gravestones with the plushies next to them. You can light these gravestones, and if doing so in a specific order, a secret staircase opens. There you will find that this chest is available to be opened, and when opening it, inside is a Bonnie mask with the message, "This looks familiar." Then, after reaching the end of the area, you find the king and you trade him the Vanny mask for a glitch trap plushie. Finally, you go up the FNAF Sister Location elevator before you find yourself in a claw machine with Vanny outside of it. You hand Moon the glitch trap plush and he gives it to Vanny. We then see Vanny pick up glitch trap himself before crushing him and defeating him. The credits then roll, and this is the secret ending for FNAF Help Wanted 2. Now, there are a lot of things to note that happen before we see the ending, and obviously in the actual ending itself. So I'm going to try and answer why Glitch Trap gives us these plushies, why there are gravestones with those plushies, why we ride in the Sister Location elevator, and finally what it means that Vanny crushed Glitch Trap. Starting with the plushies and why Glitch Trap gives them to us, first, I think that the plushies are memories and not the actual souls of those children, since we already know their souls were freed in the happy ending of FNAF 3 when the crying child finally got his birthday party. So I think it makes more sense that these plushies are memories, or they represent the acceptance of what happened, but I'll get back to this this in a moment. For now, I want to focus on why Glitchtrap is the one to hand us these memories. Well, since we know that Glitchtrap is actually the Mimic and not a reincarnation of William Afton, this means that the Mimic is handing us these memories. But again, why? Well, if we can assume that the Mimic is trying to impersonate William Afton, then I think he's giving us these memories as he's trying to say or prove that he was responsible for the murders of the 5 children. He's giving us the plushies of the main animatronic so the player can relive those memories, but this time the Mimic was responsible for their deaths. But moving back to the plushies and looking at their gravestones, here's what I think this all means. I think by the player lighting these gravestones in the order the children were murdered, he is giving these memories life and accepting the past. And by giving these memories life, he can start to look at his own past. After lighting all of the gravestones in the correct order, a secret staircase will open, and there, this chest is available to be opened. And when opening it, inside is a body mask with the message, "This looks familiar." It's been heavily theorized that we play as Cassie's father in this game. It's also been theorized that her dad is the same character as this boy wearing the body mask from the FNAF 4 ending. Meaning that the reason the mask is familiar is because it's the same one he wore on that night. So again, when the player is able to come to terms with the victim's past, he can come into terms with his own past, which is the body mask he wore on that fateful night. Not only do I think he's giving life to theirs and his memories, but I also think that this represents him finally moving on, as in the next segment of the ending, we see Cassie's father trade the Vanny mask for the final piece of code of Glitchtrap. Now, the main objective story-wise of Help Wanted 2 was Cassie's father returning to the pizzeria to finish the final Princess Quest arcade machine. In Security Breach, we did see Vanessa be freed from Glitchtrap's control when Gregory beat all of the Princess Quest arcade machines, but in Ruin and Help Wanted 2, we learned that one final machine still existed, meaning that a small part of Vanessa was still being controlled by Glitchtrap. But again, Cassie's dad ventured down to the abandoned pizzeria to beat the final machine, and when he's successful in the secret ending, his final task is to get past the king, and he does so by trading Vanny's mask. And I think the main reason he even gave up the Vanny mask was because he was finally able to move on from his past like I mentioned, so he no longer needed the Vanny mask. But moving on to the elevator, why is it the one from Sister Location? We even saw the same elevator in the first teaser trailer, and it's obvious there's some importance to it. Well, because we see Vanny right after this moment, I think we can assume that this elevator is representing the player traveling to the consciousness or mind of Vanessa. But this still doesn't answer why they used the Sister Location elevator. Well, ever since the release of FNAF Security Breach, fans have theorized that Vanessa is the spiritual reincarnation of Elizabeth Afton. They have similar designs as they both have blonde hair and green eyes. And in one of the endings, we even see Vanessa with an ice cream cone, and fans believe this is a parallel to Elizabeth's death as she was lured by an ice cream cone. And because we know Elizabeth possessed the circus baby animatronic, we can assume that she rode in the elevator numerous times, or that she was at least familiar with it. So if Vanessa is the parallel character of Elizabeth, then the elevator is still transporting the player to her mind, but it's the same one as the Sister Location elevator to show that these two characters can be considered the same. And finally, what does it mean that Vanny crushes Glitchtrap? Well, I think this one's more obvious, as this is Vanessa freeing herself from the last piece of code of Glitchtrap with the help of Cassie's dad. So that means that she is now fully freed from the Mimic's control. Now, I'm sure you've seen the popular theory from MatPat that the normal and secret ending are both actually canon, and that they both happen within the timeline. Well, I have to disagree, and here's why. Never in the franchise has more than one ending been canon. For example, in FNAF 3, there's only one canon ending. It would be impossible for the good and bad ending to both be canon, since they both contradict each other, and I think this applies to all FNAF games that have more than one ending. And in Help Wanted 2, it would also be impossible for both endings to happen no matter what order they took place. If Cassie's dad was trapped by the Mimic and had his mind transferred into a staff bot like we saw in the normal ending, then it would have been impossible for him to beat the final Princess Quest arcade machine. If he beat the arcade machine first, then it would have also been impossible to be trapped by the Mimic, since that required the Vanny mask, but we saw him trade it in the secret ending, meaning he would no longer have it. So again, no matter what order these endings would take place, they both can't take place as the canon ending. So where does this leave us with the secret ending? Well, I think that the secret ending is actually a good ending, as we see Cassie's dad move on from his past, and we see Vanessa be freed from the Mimic's control, which would make the canon ending the bad ending, as we saw Cassie's dad be trapped by the Mimic, and we saw his mind transfer into a staff bot permanently. So with all that said, the secret ending of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 was about coming to terms with the past and moving on from it, as we saw Cassie's father accept what happened to the victims of William Afton, and we saw him come to terms with his own past, which was unintentionally killing the crying child when he was young. We saw him move on from his own past when he found the Bonnie mask he wore on that fateful night. By moving on, he was also able to help Vanessa, as we saw her be freed from the Mimic's control by defeating the last piece of his code, which all led to this being the good ending. Moving on, let's look at Michael Afton's role in this game and why he's still alive in the franchise. But first, I think it's important to note when this game takes place in the timeline, as it's not what many people would expect. With the release of the newer FNAF games, the order in which they take place in the timeline is the same order as the games are released. FNAF Help Wanted started this new era, with FNAF AR being released shortly after, then Security Breach and Ruin would follow, continuing this story. And again, most recently, Help Wanted 2 was released, meaning it should be the next game in the timeline, but we know this isn't correct. We instead know that Help Wanted 2 takes place after Security Breach and before Ruin, and we have plenty of evidence that proves this. For example, in the Roxy Salon repair minigame, the player must fix Roxy's ruined face from the end of Security Breach where they ultimately fail. They instead end up using this mask, which we also see in Ruin. This would explain why Roxy has a different design from the end of Security Breach, as it was actually the player from Help Wanted 2 altering her design. Moving on, in the bad ending, you are awarded with a present after beating enough minigames. When opening the present, you unlock the last collectible figure in the collection, but before you can even unlock it, a charging station appears in front of you. The charging station then opens before Glitchtrap's hand peers out, grabbing the door. Then out of nowhere, 5 nightmare staff bots appear in front of you and jump scare you. You are then presented with a small cutscene in the perspective of a staff bot. In this scene, you see Cassie and you give her the Vanny mask. It's the exact same moment from Ruin when Cassie first finds the Vanny mask from the perspective of a staff bot. This bad ending is directly telling us that the events of Help Wanted 2 take place before the opening sequence of Ruin. So now that we know this game must take place before Ruin, now let's quickly answer who we play as, since this will directly tie into how Michael is still alive. Being that we play as Cassie's father in Help Wanted 2. In Ruin, we learn that Cassie's father used to own a Faz Ranch, insinuating that he worked for Fazbear as a technician. And in Help Wanted 2, we see the main player unlock a Faz Ranch that is used to unlock this door, again hinting that we play as Cassie's dad. But most importantly, we learn that his favorite animatronic was Bonnie, which has led many people, including myself, to believe that Cassie's father is also this boy from the FNAF 4 ending. And the secret ending directly confirms this. In the secret ending, you are transported into the actual Princess Quest game itself after unlocking a coin to play it. Then, after beating some levels, you find 6 gravestones with different plushies next to them. You can light these gravestones, and if doing so in a specific order, a secret staircase opens. There you will find that this chest is available to be opened, and when opening it, inside is a Bonnie mask with the message, "This looks familiar." This Bonnie mask is the exact same one he wore on that fateful night when him and Michael accidentally killed the crying child. And again, the secret ending and mask confirm that Cassie's dad is the same boy from the FNAF 4 ending. So I also want to point out how we find this exact same mask as one of the AR collectibles that Cassie collects in Ruin. And what mask can Cassie also collect that's also an AR collectible? That's right, this Foxy mask. The same Foxy mask that Michael also wore on that fateful night, and it's this Foxy mask that proves Michael Afton is still alive in Help Wanted 2. And these two masks are the only masks that can be collected. An important detail to note, you can't collect a Freddy or Chica mask, and this is done for a reason. But how can Cassie even collect these masks? Well, this is where a theory comes in that I haven't seen the community talk about enough, being that the Vanny network is actually a hive mind, meaning whatever is seen and used by one person wearing the Vanny mask, any other person can also see those things and collect those things that are also in the Vanny network. For example, because Cassie's father was also in the Vanny network, when he found the Bonnie mask, other people in the network like Cassie were also able to find it, as again, everything would be shared among the Vanny users. But how did the Foxy mask that belonged to Michael end up on this network? Well, I think the answer is simple. The reason the mask even exists is because Michael Afton is also inside the Vanny network, and he was also in the Princess Quest minigame at one point. When looking at what the Bonnie mask and chest mean, it all has to do with accepting the past, giving memories life, and moving on. I think by Cassie's father lighting these gravestones in the order the children were murdered, he's giving these memories life and accepting the past. And by giving these memories life, he can start to look at his own past. That's why he can even find this Bonnie mask. It's a memory from his past, a very traumatic one, and one that he needs to move on from. And really, I think whoever makes it this far in the Princess Quest arcade machine and makes it all the way to this chest is able to discover something from a traumatic memory. And it's possible that some of these collectibles in Ruin were memories that different users in the Vanny network found in the Princess Quest game. And if we apply the same logic to the Foxy mask, that means that Michael Afton is in the Vanny network and again was inside the Princess Quest arcade game, meaning he also made it all the way to this chest where he would find the Foxy mask. It makes the most sense that Michael's traumatic memory that unlocks something is his Foxy mask. He accidentally killed his younger brother by throwing him into the mouth of Fredbear, and it would make sense that this memory is something he would need to move on from and get past. But in order to even get to this point, Michael must have had to travel down to the abandoned FNAF 6 pizzeria using a Vanny mask of his own. And because he used to be a manager at this pizzeria, pizzeria, we can only imagine it made it that easier for him. But this brings up an even more important question: why wasn't Michael able to go all the way and trade the Vanny mask for the glitch trap plush, which Vanny then destroyed, setting herself free? Why wasn't Michael able to get this glitch trap plush? Well, I think that Michael Afton simply wasn't able to move on. In the secret ending, we see Cassie's father being able to trade the Vanny mask, but I think this was only possible after he accepted his past and was able to move on from it. But if someone like Michael wasn't able to move on, then he would never be able to trade the Vanny mask. And it makes sense that he wouldn't be able to move on. This was the traumatic moment that started everything for him, and because he is still alive and trying to defeat Glitchtrap, who is possibly his father, then of course he isn't moving on. He's living in the exact same cycle he lived in years ago, where his entire purpose was to defeat his own father. But either way, we know Michael was in the abandoned Pizzaplex since Cassie unlocks this AR Foxy mask, which was Michael's memory the chest displayed for him. So I also think that after Michael failed to free Vanny, he returned to Gregory and Vanessa above, where he had a small role in Ruin, and you can watch that video where I explain Michael's role in Ruin. And after the events of Security Breach, where we saw the Pizzaplex be destroyed by an earthquake, it would also make sense that Michael would return with a Vanny mask to possibly retrieve something from his room or something else from the Pizzaplex. So because we play as Cassie's father in Help 1 and 2, and because he finds the same Bonnie mask he wore on that fateful night, we know this chest represents the idea of moving on and accepting the past. That's why it displays something from a traumatic memory, and we can assume whoever reaches this chest will see a personalized memory. But we also find this Bonnie mask in FNAF Ruin alongside a Foxy mask, and because it's theorized that this Vanny network is a hive mind, whoever found these masks means anyone else in the network can also find these masks. And we know Michael must have been the one to find the Foxy mask. It's the same one he wore on that fateful night, and it makes the most sense that this is his memory the chest would display for him. And overall, the fact that we can only find these two masks in FNAF Ruin prove that we play as Cassie's father, and they prove that Michael Afton is still alive in FNAF Help 1 and 2. But of course, this is all just a theory. Now let's look at the update that helped solve Jackie in FNAF Secret of the Mimic, and how it also helped to solve FNAF Help 1 and 2. But now, how does the FNAF Help 1 and 2 update help to solve this character? Well, it's through details and hidden Easter eggs that the update included. So for a quick recap, this update included new looks at Jackie, new looks at a new location where Secret of the Mimic will take place, and it showed off a new ending solving one of the franchise's most mysterious characters. So how can we solve this update? Well, first, how do you even unlock this ending? Well, when you first load into the game, nothing seems different besides new voice lines from Mystic Hippo telling us that a gift awaits us in the distant past. But this update truly starts when you load into the Sister Location Night 4 minigame, where you find a Jackie animatronic card. Now this is a huge reveal that gives us our first look to this new character. In the same level, there's a cabinet that can be opened, and here you will find a keypad where you can enter a code. And if you enter the date 1979, which was revealed to us in the Secret of the Mimic teaser, you will be handed the Tiger Rock plushie from the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues. This plushie also unlocks the Mimic in the animatronic gallery, where he wears the lion costume from the secret ending in Ruin. Then you have to shoot the Mimic with the Phaser Blaster, and this will open a door to your side, and this is what truly starts this update. Here you will be in a room that is identical to the room where the teaser took place, and just like the teaser, you have the option of opening Jackie's box that also has voice lines from Jackie herself. Once the table appears in front of you, you will find a blank canvas, but it's actually where you'll need to start unlocking puzzle pieces to make out an image. So when going back to the base game, you must find different puzzle pieces in different minigames with and without the Vanny mask. There are also puzzle pieces in the pizzeria itself, and you'll need to unlock a total of 12 different pieces. Once you unlock all the pieces, you will find that the puzzle while wearing a Vanny mask reveals a funhouse or circus type of building with what appears to be a factory right behind it. And without the Vanny mask, the puzzle will reveal a blue van. But again, after collecting them all, the funhouse building will actually appear right in front of you, with signs advertising gifts and masks. When taking a closer look in front of the building, there's a code that reads 4625, but when taking the Vanny mask off, you will now find the blue van in front of you with the doors open, revealing the Mexis machine inside. And when taking a closer look at Mexis, there's another small keypad, and when inputting the code from the funhouse, Mexis will appear and the ending will finally play. So in this ending, we see Maxis reveal himself before the blue van drives off. Now this might have seemed short, but this actually tells us everything we need to know about this character in one ending. But finally, to end off this update, if you go back to the animatronic gallery, you'll now find an official model for the Mimic who will be known as Jackie. This design looks amazing, and she is much larger in scale compared to the player, showing how terrifying she really is. Based on this model alone, she looks perfect, so we can only imagine what she will look like in the actual game. So now that we've gone over the update, let's attempt to solve everything we know about this content update, starting with this Tiger Rock plushie. This Tiger Rock plushie just confirmed that the tales from the Pizzaplex novels are directly canon to the games. In the Mimic epilogues, we learn that the Mimic was created by Edwin, who had a son named David, and Edwin actually created the Mimic for his son David. David owned a white tiger plushie in the books, and later on the Mimic would even get a white tiger plushie of his own, and now we find this exact tiger plushie in Help Wanted 2. Meaning the story where David has the white tiger plushie is canon to the games, which also means that the tales from the Pizzaplex novels are also directly canon, finally ending a big debate. But moving on, I believe that these puzzle pieces that you need to collect represent memories. Memories when put together unlock something from the past, which is the reveal of this factory and of Mexis. So it was just a unique way of showing that these events are from the past. But when looking at this building, I think it's clear that this will be the location where Secret of the Mimic will now take place. It's something we haven't seen before in the franchise, but when comparing it to these cameras from inside the factory and from the description of the factory that was given from this demo, it's clear that these two are the same, and that this is our first look at the Secret of the Mimic location. Based on the puzzle as well, it looks like it's a combination of a carnival funhouse and factory, where we will have to explore both sides throughout the events of the game. And overall, it looks like an interesting and fun experience where FNAF's Secret of the Mimic will take place. But what about this van that was carrying Mexis? Well, at first I thought this van was from the FNAF Security Breach ending, and that is showing us how Gregory and Vanessa delivered Mexis to the Pizzaplex. But when comparing the vans, they are clearly not the same, so I don't think this is Gregory delivering Mexis. Because of how fast the van was driving, my other thought was to think back to the books, where in one of the epilogues we learn of David's death, where he was killed by a speeding car. So now that we know the books are canon, what if this van was the vehicle that killed David, also meaning that Mexis was responsible for his death? Although I think this is possible, I instead think something else is happening, which is that Mexis is being delivered to this factory. Why have this van and factory in the same room and in the same puzzle? It makes a lot more sense that Mexis was being delivered to this factory, since it takes place at such an early point in the timeline. I think this is our first look at Mexis being delivered, which also gives us a date he was created, which is 1979. Because this date was given to us in the teaser, and it was the date used to unlock the Tiger Rock plush, we can assume that that's when the game will take place, and that's when this factory was open. Meaning there's a big possibility Mexis was created the same year and was also delivered around the same time. Now let's take a closer look into the factory where FNAF's Secret of the Mimic will take place and how it's always been connected to FNAF Security Breach. In one of my last videos, I went over how the Pizzaplex from Security Breach is directly connected into the location where FNAF's newest project is going to take place, FNAF's Secret of the Mimic. And I'm going to expand further on this idea in theory that will also prove why the Mimic, who will also be known as Jackie, has been planned since the beginning and since FNAF's Security Breach. And now with the release of the FNAF Help Wanted 2 update, I believe this update only proved this theory even further. So please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's attempt to answer how Jackie solved FNAF's Security Breach. I also want to give credit to this user on Twitter, as they used a lot of their own ideas for parts of this theory, so make sure to check them out in the description below, and all credit belongs to them. So how do simple bricks found in the sinkhole under the Pizzaplex connect to Jackie and to Secret of the Mimic? Well, first it's important to understand where this newest game is going to take place. In this game's demo, we learn that the game is going to take place in a factory, and we even have this image of different cameras inside of the factory. The factory is described to be made of wooden planks, red bricks, and is described as very old and withered. If this description sounds familiar, that's because it's very similar to the location Cassie explores in Ruin that is under the sinkhole. When looking at the second location under the Pizzaplex, it doesn't match the style of the Pizzaplex or the FNAF 6 pizzeria. It appears to be much older and withered. It's made up of wooden planks and metal, and this location is almost built into the caves, showing how old it really is. So the style of this location is exactly the same as the factory from Secret of the Mimic. It was also revealed that as the demo went on, the player went deeper into the factory, just like in Ruin when Cassie went deeper into the location in the sinkhole. So the way both locations work, where they have multiple layers and floors, are identical, and even FNAF made this connection.
So now we're basically running from this Jack-in-the-Box thing through like the underground depths of this place. It looked very old, very wooden, kind of like like the structure we see in Ruin, like the staircases to get down to the Mimic. It looked like that kind of. I didn't put that together until just now.
But the connection doesn't stop there, as we find interesting clues and evidence below the Pizzaplex in the sinkhole. When going into the Freddy head, we find new rubble of red bricks that we haven't seen before anywhere in the Pizzaplex or in the franchise. Now you may be thinking that the red bricks came from the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza place that is in the sinkhole, but when comparing the rubble to the pizzeria, they are very different, and it's clear they are not the same, and that they came from two very different locations. And even when comparing the rubble to the FNAF 2 pizzeria, FNAF 3 horror attraction, FNAF warehouse, FNAF sister location bunker, none of these locations looked even remotely similar to these bricks and to the rubble. So what if these bricks actually came from a location that we haven't seen before in the franchise, from a factory where FNAF's Secret of the Mimic is gonna take place? When looking back to the cameras of the factory and to how it was described in the demo, we see that the factory was made of wooden planks and these red bricks, the same red bricks we see from the rubble in Ruin and in the sinkhole. Meaning the FNAF 6 pizzeria was built over the factory and the Pizzaplex was built over that pizzeria. So not only is there a connection to the Security Breach DLC so far, but there's even a bigger connection with the base game and with the same rubble. When looking into the sewers, we find an immense amount of red bricks and debris that wouldn't just randomly appear in the Pizzaplex. Although the Pizzaplex did go through many renovations, this doesn't include demolitions, where this many bricks would be thrown away into the trash area, and especially not enough to span the full length of the sewer systems. Again, we find the same red bricks from Ruin that can't come from any location we've seen before in the franchise. And the evidence doesn't stop there. It's also worth pointing out how strange it is to have a parking garage in the sewers. This just shouldn't be possible. But what if the parking garage was a part of this factory at one point and the Pizzaplex was built completely over it? Adding on to this, there's also a lot of rubble and debris in the area near Roxy's Raceway that feels very out of place. And we can assume it wouldn't come from the Pizzaplex or even from the FNAF 6 pizzeria that was still intact for the most part. It still looks like the Pizzaplex was built over this rubble and debris, which we can now assume is the factory from Secret of the Mimic. But when looking at one of the strongest pieces of evidence, let's look at the Build a Mangle room found in the Pizzaplex from the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. Here we find a room that looks like it was taken right from a factory, and it's obvious how old and withered this room really is. And what's most notable about this room are the same red bricks surrounding this area that we've been talking about this whole video. It could even be possible that this room is the exact same room we can find in the factory, and that it's one of the only rooms that stay preserved. But finally, what I think is the biggest piece of evidence, let's look at these TVs. When looking back at the sewer area with all the red bricks, we also find broken TVs scattered around throughout the same area. But these are actually vintage TVs that were created in the 70s. And when do we know that Secret of the Mimic will take place? That's right, 1979. So I think it's obvious that these TVs came from that time period and from the factory where the game will take place. How else would these TVs end up here and end up in the same area with the red bricks? So when looking at all the evidence of the red bricks in Ruin and in Security Breach, I already think it's safe to say that this factory is under the sinkhole and under the Pizzaplex. But like I mentioned, the FNAF Hop 1 and 2 update just proved this idea even further. After completing the update, this building will actually appear right in front of you, and it confirms where Secret of the Mimic will take place, which is this factory. You may have noticed that I've been using this image of the factory that actually came from the update, and it gives us our first official look to this new location. But when looking back to the factory itself, we see these red and gray planks, and I believe that they are the same planks or same style of planks that we see in Ruin. They would have lost their color by this point, which is why they're now simple brown wooden planks. But we also see that the factory has a red roof, and although these aren't red bricks, I still think it's the same as these rubble and debris that we can find in Security Breach. And just by comparing this factory to everything we have found, I think it's even safer to now say that these two are the same and that the factory is once again under the sinkhole. This means that Jackie or the Mimic has been stuck in the factory since 1979 and never left. And because we find these red bricks in Security Breach, I believe this proves that Sewer Studios has been planning the Mimic and his role in Secret of the Mimic since the start. By giving us a tease to where the game would take place, this proves that the Mimic had been planned since the very beginning and since Security Breach's production. So how does Jackie solve FNAF Security Breach? Well, she solves it because the location in game where she is going to be the focus in is the same location that we find under the Pizzaplex, meaning she was planned since the very beginning, and a big purpose of Security Breach was to tease this game and this character. Moving on, let's look at a secret company that was hidden in plain sight in the update. But a big mystery from this update and from the franchise as a whole is a new company that we haven't heard of before, but one that has supposedly been here since since the very beginning. Like I mentioned in the new update, a new location was revealed, and it's assumed that this location is where FNAF Secret of the Mimic will take place. When looking at the building itself and with the puzzle that first revealed the building, we see that this appears to be a funhouse or circus type of building that is selling gifts and masks. And behind this building, we see what appears to be a large factory, which matches the description of the demo that fans were able to play and of the cameras that are inside of the building and factory. And on this puzzle and on the building itself, we find a name and logo for a company that we haven't heard of before, MCM. We see the name at the top of the puzzle and we see the logo at the very top of the building. We also find the exact same logo on Mystic Hippo's fortune telling machine and a new button added just for the update. And most recently, we find the same logo again in a Christmas card created by Steelwool Studios, and the logo is on Jackie's music box. So I think it's obvious that this funhouse, this puzzle, Mystic Hippo, and Jackie all come from the same place and company. But what is this new company? What else have they been responsible for creating in the franchise, and what role will this company have in FNAF Secret of the Mimic? Well, to first answer what this company is, we need to look at a new FNAF project that is also releasing soon, 5 Laps at Freddy's. This is going to be a new FNAF racing game centered around the franchise, but we can start to use it to solve lore of the core game starting with this billboard. The billboard is simply advertising Marie.co and its products, but if that name sounds familiar, that's because it actually comes from the books and from the tales from the Pizzaplex novels. In the Mimic epilogues, we learn that the Mimic was created by a man named Edwin Murray, and it's clear that Marie.co is his company we see in 5 Laps at Freddy's. And I also believe it's the same company we see in the Help Wanted 2 update. Looking back at the name, I think it's safe to assume that the MC stand for Marie.co, meaning not only does the funhouse and factory belong to Edwin from the books, but this also means that he's responsible for the creation of Jackie, her music box, and of the Mystic Hippo animatronic. Now the other M could really stand for anything, like maintenance or management, meaning the full company name would be Marie.co Management, which does sound well and would work perfectly. So what does this company make? Well, we can assume that they make toys and products for carnivals. We see the building advertising masks which can count as toys, and of course the puzzle itself comes from this company. And in the cameras for the factory we find this carousel. We also know that Fall Fest will be closely connected to this game and factory, as we saw this poster being advertised in Help Wanted 2. We know Fall Fest is a type of carnival, as we saw a version of Fall Fest in the Dreadbill DLC. So it would make sense that the company and Edwin would make the products for the carnival where Fall Fest would take place. So now that we know they would make toys and carnival products, where else can we find them in the FNAF franchise? Because this company has supposedly been here since the very beginning, and more specifically since 1979, as that's when Secret of the Mimic will take place, we should be able to find this company or products of this company throughout different time periods of this franchise without interrupting already existing lore. So we first find a similar carousel to the one from the factory in the FNAF 2 pizzeria and in this room. But who do we also find here? Well, it's Balloon Boy. Because Balloon Boy is so different from the other animatronics, what if he came from this location and company? Which would explain his design and further add to the idea that the company was responsible for making toys and carnival products. When looking at the FNAF 2 pizzeria, we also find toys like these paper pals. It's already been heavily theorized that this paper pal is supposed to represent Jackie, and with the update, it just makes more sense now. When looking at our mod on Help Wanted 2, we see that the lower half that connects to the box is blue, just like the blue legs the paper pal has. And it would also make sense that the paper pal came from this company, as it's merchandise advertising their center animatronic, Jackie. There are also these drawings of a clown in FNAF Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night that might be of Jackie and her design and might have come from MCM like the other pieces of merchandise. It's also possible that early versions of Sun and Moon originate from this company as well, as they are very similar to the Mimic in design, and there was supposedly a mural of Sun in the demo for Secret of the Mimic. So it's possible we'll also get an origin to this character and why they're related to the Mimic. And in Help Wanted 2, I believe that all carnival games like the Carousel and Carny mini game take place in Fall Fest. It's clear that they take place in a carnival, and it makes sense that these rides and attractions would also come from this factory. And in Secret of the Mimic, we could even see these attractions being created like the carousel we find in one of the rooms. We also know that these animal mascot suits from Ruin also come from this factory, as they were spotted in the Secret of the Mimic demo. So we can assume that these mascots also had a role in Fall Fest and in the entertainment for it. But because we find these products in different pizzerias, that means that Fazbear's Entertainment and MCM have to be connected in some way, and we find that way on the building itself. Here we find a mural that contains hints to Fredbear and Bonnie. We also find symbols for sun and moon, which does confirm that they're from this time period and from this factory. So it does look like MCM is connected to Fazbear's Entertainment. It could either be that MCM is a branch of Fazbear's or that it was the company that came before it. Below we also find this old wagon that could be related to Fredbear's first appearance. In Security Breach you could find this poster advertising Fredbear's singing show, which is theorized to be the first form of entertainment created by William Afton. And this was a traveling show that would have used this wagon to travel around, so maybe MCM is related to the singing show or closely related to Fredbear. But if the two companies are related, that also means that William Afton and Henry Emily also had a part with MCM and Edwin. It could have been a new partnership that we haven't heard of before, or it could have been that William and Henry bought the company from Edwin, and this is actually something that happens in the books. In the novels, Fazbear's Entertainment buys a building from Edwin, and maybe this building is the same one we see here and under the MCM company name, connecting the two companies and three founders. So now that we know MCM stands for Murray.Co Management, that it's owned by Edwin from the Tales from the Pizzaplex novels, that the company provided toys and carnival attractions, that we find these products in different FNAF pizzerias like in FNAF 2 and FNAF Pizzeria Simulator, that it's connected to Fazbear's Entertainment through these different animatronics, and possibly through one of the early shows in the franchise, what role will this company have in FNAF Secret of the Mimic? Well, I think it's going to be what happened to the company, and more specifically, the downfall. Why haven't we directly seen the company anywhere else in the franchise? What happened in the events of Secret of the Mimic to hide this company and their center animatronic, Jackie? I also think we'll get confirmation if Edwin actually owned this company, what MCM stands for, and what animatronics they were responsible for creating. I still strongly believe that Sun and Moon and Fredbear will actually appear in this game, and maybe even possibly with major roles. But no matter what happens in Secret of the Mimic, I think it's clear that MCM will be a main focus in it, and that we'll explore Secret Company and its origin. But with that, this is everything we know about the Secret Company in Help Wanted 2, MCM. Now for a quick disclaimer and for clarification, when I discuss where the company was in different time periods of the franchise like in FNAF 2, by no means am I saying that MCM or even Jackie were planned since the very beginning. With theories like this, we are attempting to fit new lore into the already established story without interrupting any existing lore, while also tying up loose ends about characters and their origins. This is also just a theory and nothing is confirmed, so what do you guys think? What is MCM and where else can we find them in the franchise? Were they responsible for creating animatronics like Balloon Boy and Sun and Moon? And what will their role be in FNAF Secret of the Mimic? And finally, let's go over the top 10 Easter eggs from FNAF Help Wanted 2. Number 1, FNAF 6 Pizzeria. After unlocking the Faz Wrench, which then unlocks this secret door, you have the option of removing the Vanny mask. And after looking around, it may just seem like you're in some abandoned pizzeria, but when taking a closer look, this is actually the same pizzeria from FNAF Security Breach. We know it's the same one since we see the same sinkhole that led to Burn Trap, and hear the sinkholes behind the monitor, and we also even see the same power generators. But because this is the same pizzeria, that would also mean that this is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, the same location from the ending of FNAF 6. This is where Henry burns the remaining animatronics, and it's interesting how we now have two FNAF games taking place in the same pizzeria, making for a unique Easter egg. Number 2, Roxy Walkie-Talkie. While playing the Salon Roxy Repair minigame without the Vanny mask, you have to use this Roxy Walkie-Talkie in the corner of your desk to calm her down. But some of you might have noticed it's actually the same one used by Cassie in FNAF Ruin, which is evidence that supports that Help Wanted 2 takes place before Ruin. Now how Cassie gets the walkie-talkie, even though it was in Roxy's salon room, is still a mystery, but some theories claim that the person we play as left it for her for some reason. But the point still stands that it's the same walkie-talkie we see in Ruin, which is a cool Easter egg connecting these two FNAF projects. Number 3, FNAF 4 Mask. When playing the Princess Quest arcade minigame and going through a secret staircase, this chest is available to be opened, and when opening it, inside is a Bonnie mask with the message, "This looks familiar." Well, it's been heavily theorized that we play as Cassie's father in this game, and using evidence from Ruin, we know his favorite animatronic was Bonnie. It's also been theorized that her dad is the same character as this boy wearing the Bonnie mask from the FNAF 4 ending, meaning that the reason the mask is familiar is because it's the same one he wore on that night, possibly confirming that it is the same character. It may be a stretch, but it's hard to find any other reason or purpose for this Easter egg. Number 4, Nightmare on plushies. Around the pizzeria you'll find these Nightmare on plushies behind objects, and at the surface it may just seem like a creepy Easter egg, but there's actually a lot more to these plushies. Not only were they also in Ruin, but they were also in Security Breach, meaning these plushies have now been in 3 different FNAF projects projects, but why? Well, this still remains a mystery as there isn't a clear objective as to why they're here. It could be as simple as something or someone watching us, or it could mean a lot more. It's obvious that the game developers are pointing some importance to Nightmare Puppet, but for now this still remains as an unsolved Easter egg. Number 5. Vanny. This Easter egg is actually a secret ending unlocked after beating the Princess Quest arcade minigame. After trading your Vanny mask, you will be given a glitch trap plush. Then, after riding the Sister Location elevator, you'll be taken to a claw machine where you give Moon the glitch trap plush. You then see a giant Vanny outside the machine where she holds glitch trap in her hands before crushing him, which then ends the game. Now this ending is still mainly a mystery, but it's most likely that this is Vanessa completely freeing herself from the glitch trap virus, which we know a small part of still remain in the Princess Quest arcade minigame from the end of Security Breach. But after completing the ending, you also get a Vanny statue tying Help Wanted 2 with yet another game being Security Breach. Number 6. Roxy's mask. This Easter egg also comes from the Salon Roxy Repair minigame, and it's also more evidence that this game takes place before the Ruin DLC. After beating the minigame, which consists of applying makeup in different animatronic parts trying to fix her face, Roxy then gets frustrated and tells you to give her this mask. The same mask we see her wearing in Ruin, again confirming this game would have to take place before the DLC. It also just explains why Roxy even had a different design choice from the end of Security Breach. Before the minigame ends, Roxy says this line.
It's fine. Now leave me alone. I need to think. Where could he be hiding?
She's clearly referring to finding Gregory, but it's most likely that he had already escaped with Vanessa in the Princess Quest ending. But again, all of this evidence points to the same thing, and it's an Easter egg that helps tie loose ends. Number 7. Candy Cadet. When you're now wearing the Vanny mask in the corner of the pizzeria, you'll find Candy Cadet from FNAF 6. He's in the same decayed form as he was in Ruin, and he also has cryptic stories to tell. Take a listen.
Candy, now I will tell you a story about a family that missed the most important opportunity in their lives. It was a limited time offer that included a family-style pizza with all their favorite toppings. It also came with a side of fries, mozzarella sticks, extra large soft drinks, and a toy surprise. It was only $49.99 while supplies lasted. They did not purchase the food and they all died. Now let me tell you a story about a young woman who, when she was little, was led into a dark forest by a witch and almost eaten.
Now, what these stories mean are debatable like any of his stories, but many believe that it's about Vanessa and Glitch Trap, especially the second story where it might be about Vanessa taking her revenge on the Glitch Trap virus and destroying it like we see in the secret ending. But again, these Easter eggs are still unsolved, and it may be that this Easter egg will never be solved, but what do you guys think? Number 8. Foxy Jump Scare. While playing the Pirate Foxy Log Ride minigame, there isn't actually anything you need to worry about. You are given a ball launcher and you need to shoot different targets in different locations, but again, nothing can kill you, but there is actually a way to get Pirate Foxy to jump scare you. At the beginning of the ride, if you repeatedly shoot Foxy, he will eventually jump scare you, forcing you to have to restart. This can actually happen in a lot of minigames where you shoot a seemingly innocent looking animatronic until they've had enough and jump scare you. This is one of those unexpected but fun Easter eggs. Number 9. Secret plushies. Throughout various minigames, you can unlock secret plushies that have the masks of different animatronics. You can unlock a Foxy plush in the Log Ride, a Bonnie plush in the Bonkabon minigame, a Golden Freddy and Chica plush in Fizzy Fizz Night game, and finally you can get a puppet plush in the Sister Location minigame. Like the Nightmarion plushies, the purpose of them still remain a mystery, but the fact that Glitch Trap hands you all of them must mean something. But for the time being, they still remain as just a creepy Easter egg. Number 10. Monty. Throughout the entire game, Monty doesn't actually make an appearance in any of the game modes, not even in the difficult minigames, unlike Ruin Foxy and Chica, who both have appeared in different minigames. Monty has always been a popular animatronic, so for him to be nowhere in this game was a surprise. But you can actually unlock a Monty statue, which can be viewed in the animatronic gallery, but for the time being, this is Monty's only appearance in the entire game. But with all of that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this combined theory on FNAF Help Wanted 2, so what do you guys think? Remember, this video is just a theory and nothing is confirmed, so make sure to comment down below your thoughts and theories. Also make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you guys so much for watching.